We are serving up a platter of piping hot Heroes goodness here at the HGC, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm hungry for some good games. I'm Gale here with J-How, and J-How, we might be serving up some Heroes, but the players have been serving up some justice, as it seems everyone in all the regions pretty excited about that Tyrael rework.
He seems like the new hotness right now. Everybody's been on that. We've kind of seen him across all regions. We saw him a lot yesterday. That old Tyrael Greymane combo came back. Tried and true. So far, so good. So we'll see if that continues here with day 2 this weekend.
Yeah, dispensing out Law and Order, and we've got we've got the sound effects to go with it here in HGC. Checking in with the rankings of all of the teams thus far as we continue our quest to find 4 teams to represent NA at the Western Clash. Gale Force Esports, with a solid victory 3-0 yesterday over Space Station, is looking to maintain that momentum as they go up against Team 12. Meanwhile, today Tempo and Team 12 are looking for victories so they can try to keep up with Team Freedom, who looks to be, gaining speed throughout NA.
Every time I see Team Freedom, they look better and better about what they're doing, and they haven't really had to just kind of be the dominant force yet because they've kind of out-rotated their opponents. But then, Gale Force picking up the win yesterday, coming into today. Biggie yesterday during his afternoon interview said that, hey, this is the momentum we needed to come into the weekend. They're going to need it because Team 12, they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're a pretty good team. Let's check in with the schedule, see where that is going to take place, as well as what you might have missed. In Europe, Quacknix and the rest of Fnatic course corrected after losing to Zealots to get a 3-0 victory over Tricked Esport. Meanwhile, Zealots also fell to Method in a pretty crazy series that was 3-0. Make sure you go and check that one out. Later on, the battle of NA Hanzo Gods as Psalm and Tempo Storm take on Hosty and Simplicity. But first, that match that we've been expecting and excited about. That is Gale Force Esports going up against Team 12.
I would just like to further go into that. Europe this morning was exciting.
Wild.
Exciting today, but hopefully we get similar excitement here. The Gale Force versus Team 12. Team 12 obviously falling to Tempo Storm in their epic 5-game series that we had just last week. They're going to try and rebound from that themselves, put themselves further up the leaderboard. They're sitting at 2-1 currently, but Gale Force, I mean, we saw them. They had a very good opening week. Last week fell short by their standards, but came back strong yesterday, and it seems like, based on things they talked about yesterday, they might have a little bit better this week. So, we'll see exactly how that plays out throughout the day.
Yeah, I think if Gale Force play as solidly as they did yesterday versus Space Station, they really could give Team 12 a run for their money. And we have more on that, but first let's hear from the players, Kier and Fury.
Versus Tempo Storm, the thing that really surprised us was the fact that the curse that we had from Gold Club is still there, where we couldn't close out games, because in 2 of the games that we lost on Volskaya and on Infernal, we got really early keeps and we were pretty much in control most of the game, but we just couldn't close out the game and ended up losing late game, and that happened to us a lot in China. I think there is a pretty decent amount of pressure on us to remain, top 2 or number 1, because expectations from changing the rosters up, this is a roster that had players on the first place team and on the second place team, and we kind of came together. All of that surmounts a decent amount of pressure. Versus Gale Force, we're pretty confident. We think that they're a pretty big wild card in terms of performance. I think that they're a team that's always been a team that plays to the strength of their opponents. We're not going to underestimate them, but we do think that we'll be able to win that.
We're preparing for both Space Station and Team 12 equally. We don't want to underestimate any team anymore. Obviously, any team can take a match off anyone. Upsets always happen here in NA, so you never know what happens. I think Team 12 is definitely one of the top 3 teams that you have to watch out for. They're, one of the NA juggernauts. They've been around for a while. Even with the loss against Tempo Storm, I still think they're a really good team, and just have to watch out because I feel like they're still hiding some cheese or some sort.
Gotta watch out for Team 12, and especially their backline. Talking about Dansky at 11.2, highest KDA in North America so far. That puts him at 13th across all regions. He's 8th as far as KD ratio, and the first player behind any player from Dignitas, Tempest, and Ballistics. And all 3 of those teams haven't lost a game yet. throughout all of this. So that is very impressive for Dansky. His leaming is absolutely insane. We saw them be willing to first pick it, and he's got something like 5 kills per game, less than 1 death per game. He's playing very well for Team 12.
And you said backline. That includes another member back there by the name of Cure, who we talked about how strong this backline could be, and so far they're looking really strong. Cure, by the way, back there, also in North America, most average hero damage per minute. So the damage and kill potential of that backline here of Team 12 is outstanding, so this is definitely a fearsome duo on the backside for Team 12.
Yeah, and you talk about that average hero damage per minute, and it's he's 6th across all regions. He's beating Nick, and Nick was topping that chart for a lot of last year. So this is a very impressive backline that Team 12 has acquired from Team Freedom. Let's see how they do versus Gale Force Esports as we get into the Battleground pool and Game 1 of this Best of 5 series. Team 12 bans Cursed Hollow. Thought that would be the case. That has been a pick for Gale Force, though hasn't always worked out for Gale Force. Meanwhile, Gale Force continues with the Infernal Shrines ban. How so far, Gale Force has been banning Battlefield of Eternity versus Space Station yesterday, switched it out to Infernal Shrines, and I wondered if that would be the game plan moving forward for Gale Force for this series too. Try to take one of these strong maps that has been very successful for Team 12, take it away, and we saw kind of a hint toward that versus Space Station.
Yeah, and it worked out well for them yesterday. Obviously, playing on Battlegrounds they were more comfortable with. You know, we've seen Team 12 ban out Cursed Hollow a lot. However, Gale Force is 0-3 currently this season, as it being, as you said, one of their most preferred Battlegrounds. So I'm a little bit surprised there, but obviously playing to your strengths. Also playing to your strengths, Towers of Doom. They had a really clean game against Tempo Storm, and this is something that for them, it shows that their strengths in terms of it gives you that skirmish potential, it gives you the macro potential, and I think excel very well at both, and you would never say one over the other. And so I think for this fits their playstyle very well.
With the exception of Battlefield of Eternity, Gale Force seems to be adopting a lot of the same favored battlegrounds as Team 12 themselves. So for Team 12, sort of makes sense if Gale Force is going to continue toward Curse, and that's somewhere that Team 12 just doesn't have interest in playing, to just take that away anyway, and it's more of a, we still feel we are the stronger team on these shared favorite battlegrounds, like Tomb of the Spider Queen, sort of like Sky Temple 2. Haven't seen Battlefield of Eternity yet for Gale Force. They haven't even played on it yet, so we'll see, since they've been banning it so much, if maybe that's a place where Team 12 gets the win over them.
Yeah, you know, I love Towers of Doom. I mean, anything can happen. The most epic comebacks happen here, but Tomb of the Spider Queen is probably my favorite battleground. So
really?
I love it. There's always that excitement factor. There's always the skirmishing. The theme of it is my favorite. It's always been my favorite. It also brings out mage play, which is also my favorite. But either way, the fact that we get these battleground pools between these similar teams, like, it's always fun for me to watch it and to commentate and to see kind of the play that we see from these teams is also something that excites me a lot. Again, Towers of Doom, probably the most exciting. I think everybody would agree with that in Heroes of the Storm. The most exciting, the most potential comebacks, a lot to it.
It seems very like hot or cold. Either it's dominant, you get way far ahead and it's just too far to come back in with the core health, or you do get those crazy comebacks where you're at 1 health against 30 and then you just keep winning the fights, keep going and going, and you are able to win. So we'll see what kind of game it's going to be there, but we are getting started with the draft. Now, when we talk about the draft, Biggie yesterday, we talked to Gale Force. He said that they have really been able to lock down the drafting, and you could tell they have these very favored heroes that have been working well for them in combinations. Malthael is one of those heroes, and we haven't seen Team 12 play Malthael yet. So I'm expecting Team 12 to be pretty hesitant on giving Gale Force these kinds of combos. Malthael, Lucio is another one for Akaface, though he showed some great play on other supports too, and of course he can play other ones. They have these favored combos, and I fully expect Team 12 to not give them those kinds of heroes, and I'm hoping that we see Gale Force be able to play as strongly as they did yesterday without those comfort picks.
And I'm glad you brought up Akaface. That sick body block on that pulse bomb on Tomb of the Spider Queen was insane. He also showed his palms. He showed the unique Kerosene build yesterday. It actually worked out really well. He went Insight, went into the cooldown reduction at 13, getting a lot of value out of that, making sure to build it a little bit differently to suit the style. And by the end of that game, Gale had an enormous amount of heal. So it worked out really well for their team. It was on towers. So this is something that we might see. We mentioned the Lucio. He's actually played Lucio in almost half of their games so far. So there is priority in supports for him. But I think that after yesterday, he definitely showed he's he's feeling pretty comfortable on this newer meta style with the supports.
And one thing to keep in mind too for Team 12 and Gale Force in this series is that Gale Force has shown a little bit of Hanzo play, but in the series between Gale Force and Space Station, neither of those teams really seem to be as into Hanzo as some of our other teams here in North America. Talking about Tempo Storm, Simplicity, we're going to get into some crazy stats about that later on in our next series. But for Team 12, in this position, normally, you would be very considerate. Do we want to ban the Genji? Do we want to ban the Hanzo? And it feels like they can rely on potentially getting Hanzo here, even in the second pick position, especially because ETC will still be up for Fury. Gale Force might want to go for the Greymane here. Greymane was a very big pick for them. There's a lot of different things that they can pick here, and Team 12 may still be able to get Hanzo.
Yeah, the Greymane in particular, yesterday on Tomb of the Spider Queen, Michael Udall just went off on that Greymane.
1v1ing everyone.
I mean, Biggie's kind of in that more carry role now, so Michael Udall doesn't get quite the fanfare. You know, he plays more the support style. He's that secondary most of the time, but when he gets on those heroes, I mean, we saw him make plays on Falstad, on Sky Temple in our opening week. This time, Greymane. So there's a lot of playmaking potential with the Greymane, but as we talked about before we even got in here, the new Tyrael seems to be high priority.
Yeah, and Team 12 showed 3 different Tyrael players last week alone. We even saw Kier play Tyrael on Battlefield of Eternity in a triple warrior composition with the solo damage Li Ming, and guess what? They still won that game because you still got Dansky on Li Ming. But Team 12 seemed to be okay with that Tyrael pick, but what it does do is enable that Malthael. They still have a potential for Lucio too, but the Greymane. The Greymane's gone. That's taken by Team 12 and their Medivh.
Yeah, the Malthael, as you had alluded to, has had an extremely high priority for B-Kid. That was his most played hero coming into the weekend, and they showed an incredibly high priority on that. Malthael, as it stands right now, Gilly, coming in globally, in the second ban phase, is the most banned hero by far, by just miles and miles of ban there. So this right here shows that Gale Force has the priority towards that, making sure it doesn't get to there, and then it enables B-Kid. The only thing is, the way that we've seen Team 12 kind of play this map, they might go Sonya.
Wait a second.
Tyrael Diablo?
And Malthael.
Just triple melee.
Yeah, both Gale Force and 12 have shown that they're willing to do that. More so Gale Force, but last weekend with Cure again playing Tyrael, but that's a combo we haven't seen yet from Gale Force.
If you think about what you can do with this, especially Holy Ground at level 13, although we've seen a mix-up at 13, but it could be that Holy Ground. And you think about what Medivh does better than anybody, obviously, because he can kind of cheat the game a little bit, put the portal down, get in and out. 2 heroes that deal with that really well. Holy Ground, it depends on the position. It has to be perfect to make sure you have that radius to not allow somebody else. So kind of a bigger hitbox there. But Diablo also has his overpower. He can grab you and charge you away. So this actually does really well to control those points. So if you're looking to get in and get out and be aggressive, you take that away. But also, Justine plays a mean Diablo.
Well, yeah, and Team 12 picked that early Medivh. That's what I was going to say. It's a pretty big deny to take that Diablo away from the Diablo Medivh Leyline Apocalypse combination. I don't think Team 12 is expecting that at all. It just comes down to execution for Gale Force. If that was a draft choice that was completely contingent on being able to get the steal there, they have to be able to pull it off. Now Gale Force punishes even harder. They ban ETC. They're limiting the kind of engage warriors that go along with that Medivh.
Yeah, I'm looking at Justine's hero pool. ETC, Diablo are his second and third most played.
Yeah.
Tyrael kind of falls in line there. Johanna has been his most played so far, but Johanna plus a Medivh doesn't scream to me that type of engagement you were talking about, and it struggles, I think, in overall engagement. And when you see Medivh Johanna, getting those early engages is incredibly difficult. Having a Tyrael Diablo style can get you the early aggression.
Stukov and Ragnaros are adjustments for Team 12. They're holding on to what Justine's hero could be. Before, we'd seen some Garrosh comboed with what you'd seen here, but that was the old Garrosh with the pull instead of the stun on his Groundbreaker. That is an interesting one for Team 12 that Gale Force has been able to work them into.
I mean, Arthas might be okay because he can control those areas. You know, if you're worried about the Diablo charge and stun, you have Icebound Fortitude, but it does well to control a front line. And he has enough survivability, and Stukov can kind of keep him alive if things get crazy. You've got Medivh protection, you've got Stukov with the flailing arm, potentially the flailing swipe. So I would caution them heavily depending on the last 2 picks here, against a Stitches. One of the best counters on a Stitches hook into a potential silence and root is the counter engage. Stukov does well there because counter engage has always been the way to deal with the Stitches hook. But when you've got Tyrael, Malthael, Diablo all coming straight towards you, that's scary.
Karazim and Li Ming are the final 2 picks for Gale Force Esports. Back to Akaface's Karazim. Not necessarily the same build though. We'll see.
I think it depends.
A lot of that,
if
depending on the front line, yeah.
Probably not. But, or Arthas. Johanna and Arthas seem likely. Garrosh just, I don't, Garrosh suffers from burst damage. Now, Malthael has percentage-based damage, ignores the armor. Li Ming brings the burst damage. Diablo, post-level 13, insane burst damage when he gets that devastating charge. So, either way, whatever warrior you're left with here will be a little bit tricky, but we're talking about the best warrior in North America, and Justin, I got faith in whatever we go with here, but I would be surprised if it's anything other than the Arthas. Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense from a Justin perspective. He's always been one to sometimes pull out the Arthas, and here he will still be enabled to get into a better position. Sometimes can be kited and have a difficult time with that, but he can get right into position where he's going to get his Frozen Tempest on people, provided that the Medivh is good with portals, and we know Dansky, he's a pretty darn good Medivh. What do you think of these compositions? What do you think of the outdrafting potentially for Gale Force trying to snag away Diablo from the Medivh?
It really feels like Gale Force got a lot of what they wanted, and how this triple melee works will kind of be, I imagine Udall's probably going to be on one of those.
He's on the
front
Malthael.
line. He's on the Malthael, so B-Kid's going to be on potentially Tyrael here. It feels, I don't know, I haven't seen this style from Gale Force. If you just put it on paper and say, which draft do you prefer against Team 12, I would say I prefer the Gale Force draft. There's a lot that goes into this draft to controlling the front line, gives you the early engagement tools, despite Diablo really getting stronger late game. It gives you the early engagement tools, especially against the weaker Medivh comp that kind of struggles early. So I like what Gale Force is doing. I look for them to take control early.
Let's get into the game. Get the players introduced, because there's some other things to talk about, like the Stukov and the Ragnaros for Towers of Doom. But first, Team 12. Dansky will be on his Medivh. Kier is going to be playing that Greymane. Justing on Arthas. Goku will be playing the Ragnaros. And finally, Buds on Stukov.
For Gale Force on the right in red, it's going to be Biggie playing that Li Ming. Malthael, of course, was Michael Udall. B-Kid on Tyrael, Fury on Diablo, and Akaface one more time here on Karazim, debating on whether to go inside or not.
Buds has played one Stukov game and hasn't died yet. We'll see if he continues that up. Stukov has the distinct pleasure of being able to silence the sappers, and if Gale Force wants to try to use that early aggressive composition, just the aggressive composition that they have to take the sappers in the bottom lane, we've seen Gale Force have a lot of focus on that in the past in other Towers of Doom games. Might be one way that Team 12 can just withstand that, is trying to silence them and not have to worry too much about getting in there and taking them away. But they're the ones getting pretty aggressive in the bottom lane. The Ragnaros, too, is not something we see too often on Towers of Doom. It's a lot more about Rural Shrines, about Tomb of the Spider Queen, but using Molten Core, you can delay for a really long time. Say you lose somebody, and then you go into Molten Core, you can delay safely until they get back in.
See the heavy rotations from Team 12, got some structure damage in there. Of course, Tyrael was waiting to see if he could catch somebody in rotation to the top, so Team 12, not willing to take that sort of bait, goes back, and they'll turn their attention towards the bottom. Sapper camps have spawned on both sides as well.
Jayhan, I'm fairly nervous to see Insight still picked this game.
Against Arthas?
Against Arthas. Not only do you... It was against a Leoric and a Tyrael yesterday. Very low in crowd control for him. But you're not only facing the roots and the silence between Arthas and Stukov. Later on, Sulfurous Smash from Goku, should he go that way. But you're also having an issue with the auto attack speed slow. And as long as Arthas is in the right position, and you can rely on Justin to be that, the longer that he's in there trying to get the punches done, the more slow he's going to be. And he's trying to build those stacks up, but I guess the best thing we can do is keep track of that and see how it's working out and watch the positioning of the two together in the team fights.
Yeah, especially, I mean, he seemed to kind of make it work, especially around the 7-13 talents, to make sure that he got that full duration of the Fist, the Deadly Reach, trying to make sure that he can get full reset, basically, have infinite deadly reach up. And it does help, but that's still an attack speed reduction. But either way, we've got a pretty neutral start, except for Team 12 was taking control of those sappers, as you mentioned, getting the silence on those sappers, but just mainly the zoning control there. And against the heavy melee composition, Stukov does do really well to go against that heavy front line.
Exactly right. This is a great pickup from Team 12. Fury's going to flip over, trying to escape. Kier keeping on. Throwing that damage out, doing a lot of great damage to Gale Force as the altars will be activating in 20 seconds. Looks like most of Gale Force is going to head up, maybe looking to see if they can delay at the top instead of being separated out. No globals, though, for either side, so that's not something that either team has to worry about.
Yeah, I expected a Dahaka to make an appearance here, but ended up being Ragnaros, and Ragnaros can use Molten Core to delay some of these if it does take place. B-Kid is going to recognize that if you keep Goku around that area, and when it comes to channeling of the middle altar, it could be just an issue that you deal with of the zoning. But speaking of zoning, Kieran team just took care of that mid one.
Yeah, Team 12 recognized that there was more than just the one person standard to pick up the altar for Gale Force's side. And B-Kid does delay for a while, but Team 12 with great recognition pushed forward, zoned away, and grabbed 2 of the 3 altars. So they have a slight advantage, but it's nothing to sneeze at. Akaface in danger. There's the slow that we were talking about. Still slowed into the silence, too. Has a well tap, but takes significant amount of damage. But in the top, Gale Force finally find that Ragnaros kill that they've been looking for.
The Ragnaros is there. That Earth ally against a Greymane. Fantastic use of it there. Justin going to take the portal out, but you can see getting value out of that. He didn't necessarily have the range on it that I think he wanted, but the block value, the physical armor, definitely something that, that paid off there for him.
Level 7 acquired by Gale Force Esports. Wondering what we see from Fury. Going to stick with Diabolical Momentum. More about having the combos up than having the spell shield you can get with Soul Shield. And it's the same. Heavenly Zeal for more movement speed increase. And because it does give you the extra 15% for a 30%, Akaface can try to rely on that as maybe a way of helping himself and others out of that Arthas Frozen Tempest. And the silence maybe, as long as he's not in it.
As long as he's not in it. Kira being very aggressive here as they try and push the sappers in. Already taken the wall. They're going to try and look to do some fort damage here, the bell tower damage. It's Biggie and team starting to fire back. Should get the takedown, save their fort.
One altar this next phase. 20 seconds till that, as we're at 89 insight stack, so almost there. Master's Touch was the pickup for Dansky still. He seems to be the most consistently still picking Master's Touch, not deviating like Yoda or Psalm, I believe, was the other player.
They did it against heavy melee compositions because the other talent gives you that extra ability when you're hitting multiple people, and here they just don't have that. But the contention for the altars here, Michael, Udall, and Goku on the backside of this, but the rest of the front line, Gale Force starting to push Team 12 back for the moment.
Yeah, and it's nice that they were able to do that because with all those melees, they were finding it hard to be able to get in and stall, especially with Justin blocking a lot of Biggie's spells. But now that they have this good positioning set up, it's become a lot easier for them. Justin and Friends going to go in again. Ragnaros is going to be used. This is buying some time. Also gets some damage down on Gale Force Esports. Start to get some poking in. Gale Force recognizing that there's just nothing that you can do. As long as the Molten Core is going, just have to wait it out.
Wait it out, Buds. He'll be able to interrupt there, at least force them off the point. Justin, get a little bit of zoning going in. Molten Core has expired as well, so we'll see attention here for the altar. See Tyrael up at the top of the screen, just kind of hiding, waiting for an opportunity to go in, but Michael Udall getting low on the backside.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of damage. The flip hits. It's on Kira, who has the force of will. That silence is money. 3 kills so fast, all out once. B-Kid will go down too. Look at the cooldown timers.
They're identical.
That silence.
They're literally identical.
Wrecked Gale Force. Wrecked them. That Stukov pick was so good.
The Arthas slow and the Stukov slow and silent.
Yes, please.
I mean, Arthas on the front line is enough, and then we see Stukov take the portal in. And he's like, well, I'll just throw you down here.
Yeah, that was I believe it was a Ragnaros Q that finished them off. It was the slam of legend. Sulfuris has never smashed so hard. Or been empowered so hard. Goodness. That'll give a quick 2-level lead for Team 12. And they now have heroics.
That turned quickly.
Yes, it
with
did.
the team coordination for Team 12. But as it's been told, Towers of Doom never completely out of it on this battleground. But this is a similar position where we saw Team 12 before, where they were able to get control and then just hold control. And this bottom lane is where a lot of that starts.
Yeah, and a lot of that, if a team has a Dahaka there, will counter push up at the top lane at least and have that pushing as a way of maybe being able to, if you can't take the bottom back, at least get a bell tower somewhere. Because now Gale Force is going to be held to this bottom, and there's not a lot in the way of being able to stop these sappers or even take this back. Team 12 should not have that difficult of a time, especially with the silences, with lane line seals if things get really dangerous. Just being able to stay here, although if Justin gets flipped in like that, body blocks are amazing, but the portal's still there and he gets out.
And the sappers just sitting on the doorstep, not able to go in. Sulfuris smash gets nobody.
Fury receives a palm. It enables him to make it back out. The sappers stopped, altars activating. Gale Force Esports now need to figure out how they set up for this. They are almost behind a talent here. It's just 13, but it is a problem. They don't have that bell tower, so any altar taken by Team 12 is going to equate to more shots. They're already falling behind in the shots, so it looks like they're just going to at least try to trade out and make sure they get one of these, even though they haven't been able to take that bell tower back.
Not yet, and they have their eyes on that. Sappers being picked up. It looks like Tyrell's going to try and interrupt. Malthael on the minimap will just leave it at that as the real action is down here. Although Dansky's like, wait a minute, I see you up here.
This will enable me to get those stacks I need. I'll just continue stacking up as long as you'll let me out. Malthael's going to chase him on out. Forces a portal usage, but with 13 now, it's going to be up faster. Cursed bullet, silence, obliteration. Karazim goes down. Sappers moving closer and closer to that kill zone as the altars were picked up. 21 to 33.
It just, I think he thought that maybe it could do enough damage there, or maybe it was a misclick, but Li Ming goes down. I don't know if slamming the sapper was intended there behind the gate, but it got a core point there.
Yeah, maybe thought it was going to do enough damage to kill it first. Unfortunate, though. You know, we'll wait and see if it comes down to 1 versus 1, and that's how they lose. I don't think it's going to be too bad, but now heroic abilities are here for Gale Force Esports, and this is where they got to turn the tides around. They've got their Sanctification, Apocalypse 2, Tormented Souls, all those huge heroic abilities, and Divine Palms, which Akaface did well with yesterday.
They've just done so well at setting this up. Getting the Stukov silence and just ripping somebody apart has been a big part of the engagement so far.
Yeah, and they have the root now, too.
And they have the root. But the thing is, we still haven't seen the ultimate combo of the Leyline Seal. There's the root. Nice palm. We have not seen the whole Leyline into an Arthas just walking in there. Stukov throwing down the silence. I mean, that's where the real scary part, I think, is going to come in. And then you get the Sulfuris smash behind all of that. So there's a lot of kill potential, but for Gale Force, they're almost 13. They have not been able to crack the code in that bottom lane, but they're going to have to try and find different ways to force an engagement soon. It's going to whittle down enough to force that.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for Gale Force. The ability to execute that well, just off of the Howling Blast silence, and now with the root with the weighted pustule and virulent reaction is it's pretty scary that it doesn't even require a heroic ability, and it burns a heroic ability that Gale Force had to use Palm there. But that's always been something that Team 12 has excelled at, is being able to just one-shot someone with great synergy.
Molten Core delaying here as they've already channeled the bottom altar. Molten Core is now expired. Even talent tiers, Gale Force is going to have to make something happen.
Sulfuris, great palm again, but underneath that is going to be the Apocalypse and the Tormented Soul. Sanctification hasn't been used yet. Might need to group up for that soon, especially with that Leyline Seal going out. BK gets into position, has the Sanctification now as Akaface gets away. Malthael, though, has fallen, and Gale Force on multiple fronts trying to find an opening to take someone out. But unfortunately, they are about to lose so much.
They're losing a lot. That's 3 members down on the side of Gale Force. Team 12 just taking complete control. B-Kid with a little bit of a juke, but Dansky's got that portal. That movement speed as we play a ring around the Rosie here. There we go.
Ring around the haunted house? Is that what the thing is?
It's what it feels like right now. They're going to
Yeah.
move in and take another bell tower here, which will give them another shot on the core, give them more control of this battleground. Team 12 in control, up 33-10 after this channel's through.
And 3 level leads, 10 kills to 1. Gale Force hoping to use that warrior choke, at least to take the Diablo away from the Medivh. But Team 12 are proving that they have other options if that's the case. As the Diablo falls, Fury goes down. Team 12 defending this bell tower. They do lose Stukov, but they've got the slow on Michael Udall. He's going nowhere. Nowhere except back to the base. Okay.
Well, they're trying to get fancy
I
right
got an
now.
aggressive portal. This escalated quickly.
Sappers, all 3 of them make it through, make that 7 core health remaining for Gale Force. And with this heavy melee composition, they have struggled to push in behind this bell tower. And once it's been taken, Team 12 has not let go, Gilly. It has just been complete control since that went down.
6 shots. One of these has to give. Bottom's pretty low, though Team 12 are working on Sappers to try to keep a hold of that. Gale Force push into the mid. The next altar phase is the triple altar phase, and without 16, without some of these bell towers back, I don't know what Gale Force is going to do to hold there, especially if they keep losing people as fast as Team 12 can take them out.
They tried to get aggressive, but the minute they turned around, there were no more minions to take those shots from the bell tower, so that could have been a lot worse. They hold for now, but Gilly, we're looking at triple altar phase, and Team 12 still maintaining control of most of this. There's Sappers pushing bottom. I think Team 12 is trying to close it out.
Yeah, if they just escorted one of these Sappers in and then got the bottom one, that's all they would need. That's all she wrote. Leyline goes out, Justing in the position, as Mike's going to teleport over to the other side. We're going to use that Tormented Souls. Karzim gets blown up as he goes in with the palm. It's held, waited. Goku takes over with the Molten Core. There goes the shots onto the core as we see Stukov just playing with his food.
Is this how I channel this?
That happened to me earlier this week. It's pretty frustrating. And then I got Dragon's Arrow after it. He'll have the channel. Team 12 looking good. 17 kills to 2. They take out Gale Force in game 1.
It was their battleground choice, and they clearly had a strategy as they snap blocked that Greymane and Medivh. Hanzo, where was he at? He was nowhere in that draft.
Notoriously absent.
Huh. Like, literally not even banned.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, either way, they had a strategy. They executed it. Things worked out really well. Dansky and Cure, obviously that duo, but I think that one big team fight with that triple kill and the Arthas slow, the root, and Ragnaros going in, after that,
Kind of set the stage, didn't it?
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
You lose that bell tower in the bottom too, and it was great to see how fast Team 12 took control of that bottom lane. They understood that it was going to be really difficult for Gale Force to take that back if they ever got it. Took it and never let go. The whole game, they kept a hold of that for increased shots. They escalated the game, winning at the 5th phase. Now, talking about Hanzo, Cure's only played 3 games with him. We have some players who've played a lot more of them, so it might just be the difference of Hanzo teams versus not Hanzo teams. But we'll wait and see on some of these others, like Sky Temple, Cursed Hollow, more of the boss maps. Maybe Infernal Shrines, seeing what he can do there too. But it is interesting.
Yeah, Hanzo, there's not a lot of non-Hanzo teams, to say the least.
That's true.
Globally, but definitely both of these teams, they've kind of had a slight aversion towards it. We'll see if that does continue. Of course, I wouldn't say Towers of Doom is not a Hanzo map. Maybe they just had other preferences, and they definitely had a preference in terms of how they wanted to play this game. And sometimes it's just not conforming to the norm. I mean, you have a strategy. If Hanzo does come out, you have that strategy to get to that backside, Greymane and Medivh to try and protect that. You have the dive, you have the engagement. So even if Hanzo did come out there for Gale Force, feels like Team 12 was prepared for it either way.
Now, looking into our next game, we're going to Battlefield of Eternity, so it might be that we see Hanzo pop out here.